The Binational Commission meeting here in Ottawa went very, very well with our Canadian counterparts, covering 5 broad areas. We looked at issues of security and counterterrorism, looked at a cluster on trade and investment, also looked at the issues of development and governance, considered human mobility in the context of migration, and finally we reviewed issues on regional trends affecting West Africa, Africa, and the entire globe. And in all of this, it offered an opportunity for Nigeria and Canada to review our bilateral cooperation, given that the Binational Commission is a framework for coordinating, reviewing, and assessing the relationship between Canada and Nigeria. And under the peace and, or rather the security and counterterrorism, as you'll imagine, the Canadians were keen to hear from us what we are doing about the security challenges we are facing, and we seized the opportunity of that exchange to inform the Canadians of what government has done so far in the fight against Boko Haram. We emphasized that government is using a dual approach of military operations, but backed with a soft approach also to make sure that it is not just the military operations per se that will bring an end, but that every ground that is recovered is immediately protected and then people are encouraged to go back, which is what government has repeatedly informed about the rehabilitation, resettlement, reconstruction, and reintegration of internally displaced people, doing everything to provide the necessary atmosphere for them to go back. And we made the point that in all of this, the dignity of the internally displaced people is important. Anyone without dignity will feel a sense of emptiness, and government, therefore, by encouraging them to go back and resume their normal lives in peace and security and harmony, is keen to make sure that these things come together as an end goal. And of course, without security, there will be no investors coming to Nigeria. And when investors do not invest in Nigeria, the goal of diversifying and growing the economy may well be a mirage. So that came through. In the second cluster, we highlighted the opportunities there are in the Nigerian economy, given that government is already putting together a package with economic diplomacy, once again gaining currency in our engagements with the external world. And we brought it to the knowledge of the Canadians that there are ample opportunities in Nigeria, with focus too on the mineral sector. And in both agriculture and the mineral sector, we emphasize the need to go through the entire value chain of adding value to the primary commodities that we produce. And this, we believe, is the way to go, because by adding value, we are creating new opportunities. And with these new opportunities, we believe, too, we are going to create wealth, and with wealth, we'll be tackling poverty. And that was well received, if you remember, and you were there. The binational meeting was preceded by a business forum where Canadian companies had the opportunity to engage with officials of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, as well as officials from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And it was clear that there is interest in the Nigerian market here in Canada, but what is lacking is adequate information and advocacy on what Nigeria stands to offer. And it came to light to things that some know but not everyone does, that the yields in the Nigerian market about the highest in Africa. Then on the development and governance cluster of issues that we discussed, here we reviewed with Canada what they have been doing, and Canada has been doing a lot. They've helped us with in the health sector, with maternal and child health. They've helped us in the campaign on polio, and there are other ways too that they are working with us on child and early marriage. These were issues that resonated during the exchanges with the Canadian side. And fourth pillar that we talked about was the pillar on human mobility. And as can be expected, we used the opportunity to tell Canada that migration is an age-old phenomenon and that regular migration should be promoted. We emphasized the need for the Canadians to grant us better visa access, to shorten the time it takes to procure a Canadian visa. On average, it takes about 3 months. That is not satisfactory for us to have to wait 3 months before you procure a visa. And even when you are holding a diplomatic or official passport, you are still not spared of the length of time. And there was understanding on the Canadian side, but we agreed together that these will be matters that have to be looked at in the context of domestic legislation. We've made the point, and I'm sure that it is not lost on the Canadians. The fifth and final cluster was the review of regional trends, talking about what is happening in ECOWAS, talking about what is happening at the African Union, and we had the opportunity to review the most recent global activity that took place, which was the just concluded China-Africa Forum that took place in South Africa. And in all of this, the Canadians were keen to know what is China all about in Africa. And we explained to them that from the experience we have, the Chinese are ready to invest in the African market. They are coming as partners, as friends, and we encourage Canada to follow suit. Because if China has enough money to invest in infrastructure, China has enough money to invest in agriculture, enough money to expand and build capacity, then that is an example for others to follow. So, Joy, in a nutshell, these were the issues that we covered.
Canada is providing security assistance in Nigeria under the Canada Global Partnership Program. How is that working in the country?
Let us take the cooperation that Nigeria is getting today on the security front. In June, when the president went for the G7 summit in Munich, he met with the entire membership of G7. And he promised and has fulfilled that promise of putting together a comprehensive package of needs that has been presented to the G7. You know, Canada is a member of the G7. So as a collective, Nigeria has made a presentation to the G7, and individually, where we've had the opportunity as now, we've also talked to the members of the group as individuals. And in all the engagements we've had, we make clear that we want to build our capacity to really take the battle ourselves to Boko Haram. What we need is support with equipment. We also need support with intelligence gathering. And we are getting, and we talk about training and retraining of our military and other security forces. And these are ways in which we've enjoyed support from our partners. And yes, Canada, in the course of the meeting, understood what we require, and they assured that they will look within to see how best they can assist us. But on the whole, they expressed support for the way we are fighting, and equally assured us that to the best of their ability, they will facilitate and assist us in those key areas that we need. And given the posture of government today, I believe it is a matter of time. The fight against Boko Haram will be a thing of the past, because the morale is very, very high. Government has better equipped the military, and the results are showing equally that the military is appreciative of what government has put for them.
Your Excellency, Canada has completed its domestic ratification of the Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, FIPA, and we know that FIPA can't enter into force except the process is completed in Nigeria. Where are we with the process in Nigeria?
The Foreign Investment Protection Agreement, which you refer to as FIPA, requires the approval of the National Assembly in Nigeria before it can come into force. On our side, we are ready, but we believe that the National Assembly must grant the authorization after looking at it exhaustively. And I had, in the course of this Binational Commission meeting, the opportunity to meet with the Canadian Foreign Minister, apart from the regular session that I co-chaired with the Deputy Foreign Minister, who also doubles as Permanent Secretary at the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ottawa. And in all, there is a keen interest on the Canadian side for Nigeria to ratify the FIPA. But we cannot ratify what the National Assembly has not authorized us to do. So we are waiting for the National Assembly to look at it and give us the green light, and it will come into effect. But we do know, too, that it is this FIPA that will provide the legal framework to govern the interaction between Nigeria and Canada on investments. And we understand what it means and the urgency that is required to bring it into effect.
Some Canadian investors have the opinion that the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC, is not pulling its weight as a one-stop shop for investors. Now, what can we do as a nation to change that narrative?
It's not peculiar to NIPC, but it's a systemic thing in the country. First, we need to change our attitude. Look at the multiplicity of agencies that we have at our entry points. Take the airports, Abuja or Lagos. The first thing that you will notice is the number of agencies that are represented at the airport, each in the name of pursuing a mandate that has been given to them. But in doing so, they forget that every bad trait that they show or they display at the airport is a bad advert for the country. You are arriving newly. Nobody has any business to do with you, but a functionary of government who should help you is the first to create a hurdle for you by asking you, what are you carrying? Or, your boys are hungry. What do we mean by that? You are advertising the very bad thing that your country should not display to a foreign visitor. The other thing you discover is, because someone is a foreigner and visited for the first time, you make it your business to exploit that person. That's not how to welcome visitors in a foreign place. And if you want them to come back a second time. Remember, we say first impressions last. And if the NIPC is accused of saying one thing and doing another, I've situated it already in the very system that we operate at home. There are far too many hurdles that are created, and these hurdles are not necessary. Now, if we want to attract and make business easy in Nigeria, we should reduce the layers of bureaucracy. During the business forum, two things came up. Number one, the business environment in Nigeria must be seen to be friendly. And number two, the regulatory framework must also be business friendly, without which you've closed the door by your very own attitude and legal provision against attracting the very foreign investment that we desperately need in the country. With time and with the posture of the present government, I believe that the goal of making the NIPC a functional agency in the promotion of investment in Nigeria will be attained.
Your Excellency, thank you for your time.